Thank you all for joining us today, and happy Pride. My name is Joseph Swice. I'm the Vice Chair of the San Francisco Human Rights Commission. First, we're going to do a land acknowledgement from Commissioner Pellegrini. Then I'll do rapid fire acknowledgements here, and we'll get the show on the road. Commissioner?
Thank you, Commissioner. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land, and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten the responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for the peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and the relatives of the Ramaytush community, and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples.
Thank you, Commissioner. So before we get started, I'd like to do some acknowledgements of everyone who's up on the mayor's balcony. And Supervisor, I promise I'll be quick. So let's save our round of applause to the end. Michael Lambert, Karen Roy, Bob Moser, Eric Shaw, Jeff Tumlin, Grant Colfax, Paul Miyamoto, Carol Eisen, Mano Raju, Jose Cicernos, Supervisors Asha Safai and Supervisors Rafael Mendelman, Commissioner Ampon, our fearless mayor, the chair of the Human Rights Commission, Karen Clopton, Commissioner Mark Kelleher, Commissioner of, remind me, it's the DOS, Disability and Aging Services, Martha Knutson, one of our new members for this term, Jojo Tai, and we have Chief Nicholson, my fellow Commissioner Hala Hijazi, HRC Director Cheryl Davis, Director of the Office of Transgender Initiatives, Claire Farley, and Jason Pellegrini, who just gave our land acknowledgement. Thank you.
Good job.
We are all extremely excited to join Mayor Breed to officiate this new chapter of the LGBTQI Advisory Committee. Many of you were here a couple years ago when we met in person in City Hall while it was still safe to do so, and talked about what the future of the AC should look like, and here we are today. So I see amazing leadership in front of me, I see amazing leadership beside me, and I know that nobody's here to see me go on any longer. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Chair Karen Clopton to introduce the mayor.
I'm going to ask our Vice Chair, Joseph Swice, to stand with me for a moment, because I want to present to him in thanks for all of his amazing work, his maturity, his wisdom in consulting the elders in how to do things and how to go about things, because he's one of those who knows he doesn't know everything. So we love you, we appreciate you. And we want to give you this present.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I also want to acknowledge Commissioner Ampon for all of her work on this AC revitalization. And
Me too?
not yet. And Commissioner Kelleher for providing institutional and historic knowledge. I am so humbled and honored to introduce someone who, frankly, in this crowd, needs no introduction. But yet, I feel compelled, in the words of Lin-Manuel Miranda, love is love is love is love. This city is amazing because we have amazing leadership. Our mayor, Mayor London Breed, epitomizes so much that we admire, that we aspire to. She is not only beautiful, but she is beautiful on the inside, and that radiates out. She is educated, she is eloquent, she is elegant. Most importantly, she is empathetic. She is also a loving granddaughter, daughter, sister, friend, and she has provided love in her leadership. The leadership of valuing everyone, all residents of the city and county of San Francisco are her constituents. I am so proud that 10 years ago, on the centennial of women's right to vote in the state of California, as president of the League of Women Voters here, we acknowledged her as a rising star. Well, her star is fully implanted in the universe, and we are absolutely blessed and fortunate to have her as our beloved leader. With no more ado, Mayor, Madam, London Breed.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate your kind words, and it is so great to be here with members of the Human Rights Commission to reconstitute a committee that is so vital to the protection of LGBTQI rights here in San Francisco. In fact, this committee, constituted in the early 1970s, has really helped to shape policies in this city around domestic partnerships, around same-sex marriages, around all the policies that have really put San Francisco on the map as a leader for LGBTQ rights in this country. And the fact is, people look to us on what we're doing to try and push for similar policies where they stay. And I'm so honored to be mayor of a city that really prides itself on being inclusive, on putting forth ideas that sometimes are not ideas that people always feel comfortable with. Like when I talk about guaranteed income, because people need money in their pockets in order to take care of themselves and their families. And in San Francisco, not only did we push this policy for guaranteed income for mothers, expecting mothers of Samoan and African American descent, we are doing one of the first ever pilots for our transgender community right here in San Francisco for a guaranteed income. And it has a lot to do with the work around the advisory committee that's led by Claire Farley in the Office of Transgender Initiatives, the first office in the country for transgender initiatives specifically. A lot of this work has everything to do with so many of you continuing to come up with the ideas that make the most sense based on your own experiences. And when I think about San Francisco, Supervisor, and our history in this movement, when I think about the Compton cafeteria riots, and when I think about Harvey Milk and his breakthrough of becoming the first gay supervisor in this city, and all of the incredible things and milestones that people continue to talk about and point to when describing the history of this community, one of the things that was important to me and important to Supervisor Mandelman is, how do we talk about this history? How do we remind the next generation of this history? How do we protect this history? And together we worked to make sure that there was $12 million in the upcoming budget to have the first ever LGBT museum in the city and county of San Francisco. Martha, we've come a long way, haven't we? We've come a long way, but we do have a long way to go. There is still a need for change. And that's where this committee, which has such an incredible history in San Francisco, This is why it's important to reconstitute this committee. And I want to thank Cheryl Davis of the Human Rights Commission and all the commissioners for having the forethought to think about the need to institute this rather than continuing with the commissioners and they making all the decisions and the director making all the decisions. They said this advisory committee will be representative of the arts, it will be representative of the challenges around mental health, it will go from a number of sectors and provide input to us so that all of the investments that this city is making are going to the right places, and more importantly, all the new policies we need to create are coming from the people who understand the impacts the most. So today is a day to celebrate. Yes, it's a swearing in, but you know what? It's the first time we had anything on the mayor's balcony since COVID. So that's why everybody showed up. They were like, I don't know what it is, but I'm here. So before we swear in our new advisory committee, I want to introduce Supervisor Raphael Mandelman, who has been an extraordinary partner to work with. I'm so grateful for his work, his advocacy. Sometimes he's the lone supervisor fighting for the things that are necessary to support this community, and I'm appreciative of his colleagues who just support him and go along with the things that we know are important. So Supervisor Mandelman, we have work to do, but I know you'll handle it. So come on up and say a few words.
I'll handle it. You know, one of the things that I love about Pride and love about being able to have Pride here on the mayor's balcony is that it brings together such phenomenal, amazing, and diverse queer leadership. And I, walk out here and I see the folks who are leading departments and doing incredibly important work in city government, and I see the folks who are leading in nonprofits, queer and otherwise, and doing incredibly important work there, and the folks who are holding up our nonprofit sector, the activists, the folks who are demanding change, and I love our community so much, and it's so wonderful to be here in person, and so happy Pride, everyone. Happy Pride 2021. One of the problems with being Mayor London Breed in the summer of 2021 is that everybody has fallen all over themselves to say nice things about her, but they are deserved because she did get us through this pandemic. With an assist from our gay public health director, Grant Colfax. Thank you, Grant Colfax. But she has also been, from the beginning, and before she was mayor, but definitely I have seen her up close and personal since she has been mayor, being a tremendous friend to the queer community and queer communities. From the folks who she has lifted up and into leadership in her administration, some of whom you see right here, who are doing such great work, to the priorities and policies she has set, to the incredible investments in LGBT senior housing, in queer cultural spaces, in a museum, in universal basic income for trans folks. I mean, it's truly extraordinary, and each year around budget time, she comes up with new and amazing things to do for the queer community. So thank you, Madam Mayor. That's an applause line. And just yesterday, together we introduced this legislation to begin to collect SOGI data about city employees. And it is a mark of the work that San Francisco has done and how the world has changed since the 1980s, and the work that the HRC Advisory Committee has done that has led to the legislation that we introduced yesterday. Because in the 80s, you would not have asked. If you asked, there was something wrong. Why are you asking us whether this person is queer? That was not information that the community wanted gathered in the 80s. Today, we know it's information that we need to have gathered, and that is because of the work that the AC has done around same-sex marriage and economic inequality and seniors and youth, and looking inward at the issues around discrimination within our community. And we have now gotten to this place where we have federal, state, and local protections, and where we need to know to be able to better serve the most vulnerable folks within the queer community, to be able to get folks into city government to have this data. And so I think that's just a tremendous mark of the work of the AC, and I want to thank everybody who's been involved with that over the years. I want to again congratulate Vice Chair Swice and Commissioners Ampon and Kelleher for all of their tremendous work to rethink what the AC should look like now. And I want to really thank the folks, the extraordinary leaders who I see out here who are stepping up to be on the AC going forward. You have so much work to do. We need to gather that data because we know the world is not where we want it to be. There is tremendous unfairness, and it is hitting Black, Latinx, members of our community, trans folks. We're seeing it in rates of violence, in unemployment, in poverty, and so we got to get stuff done. But I know the folks who are signing on for the AC are going to do that work. And happy Pride again.
Happy Pride.
Thank you, Mayor Breed, and thank you, Supervisor Mendelman. One of the exciting things about one of the updates to the advisory committee is I think of it as, United Nations style. We're giving seats to elected offices, to CBO organizations, and community members to come together. So I do want to acknowledge David representing Speaker Pelosi's office, Omar Rinkin with Senator Scott Wiener's office, and Joe Adkins, I know you're going to be representing the supervisor's office. Thank you. I'm really excited. And I do also want to acknowledge present with us Luis Zamora from Chu's office and Zahra Haji with Senator Padilla's office. And of course, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the hard work of the Human Rights Commission director and staff. Yes. Taquan and Kathy and all the staff, Shakira, you've all worked so hard to make today a reality, but none of it could have been done without our fearless leader. Director?
Good afternoon. I just first and foremost want to recognize, I'm Cheryl Davis with the Human Rights Commission. She's always keeping me on point here. First, I was going to ask, since she did that, I was going to ask Commissioner Clopton if she was looking at me when she said the elders, but I just want to first and foremost recognize and thank Taquan Harrison from the Human Rights Commission. Taquan will be working with the advisory committee, and I just want to thank him for his hard work and dedication in working with Commissioner Kelleher, Commissioner Ampon, and Vice Chair Swice to actually have this happen and make it happen. There were a lot of meetings, there were a lot of review of the bylaws and rewriting of the bylaws, so I just wanted to thank them. And I also just wanted to recognize when I first came on to the Human Rights Commission in 2011, then Commissioner Chung and Commissioner Pappas were there. And one of the things that I had said that I wanted to really focus on and think about was intersectionality, right? That when we talk about the layers of who we are and the complexity of that. So when we start to talk about being LGBTQ plus and anything else, that it becomes that much more challenging to navigate and move through things. And so I'm really grateful for this advisory committee for us to be able to call that out, whether that is age, whether that is race, whether that is gender, but as we go through this, understanding to be poor and LGBTQ plus is not the same as just being poor. And that as we do this work and we have these conversations about policies, that we're very intentional. So I am grateful for all of you that have signed up to be a part of this, to actually work with us. But more than that, I'm grateful for the leadership of Mayor Breed and Supervisor Mandelman and even Supervisor Safai for when those moments come up, that they are willing to stand in allyship and to be accomplices to actually change the policies and make things better. So it may not be easy, it may be challenging, and it's going to require some work, so we thank you all for agreeing to do that work, and we look forward to making the changes that need to be made in order to make things better, not for just one group of folks, but for all folks. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Director Davis. And before we get started to the swearing in, I'd like to also invite Martha Knudsen, who's now the Commissioner of Department of Aging and Disability Services.
If you live long
who has been on the HRC Commission, I think, for 8 years, right?
Yes.
When the AC was in full swing. So I'd like to welcome her. Thank you.
Mayor Breed, Supervisor Mandelman, Executive Director Davis, Commissioners, staff of HRC, and soon-to-be sworn-in members of the LGBTQI Advisory Commission, right? The committee was the first of governmental bodies in the nation to advocate for LGBTQ rights when it was created in the 1970s. So I want people to sort of absorb that. Although our community asked Mayor Feinstein to create a city commission, she believed the LGBTAC was appropriately placed in the Human Rights Commission, where the city strived for the civil rights of all San Francisco residents. We laid the groundwork for change by documenting our issues through hearings, writing policy recommendations that ultimately became legislation, and focused funding for nonprofits to better serve our needs, all of which is now on the LGBT today. During the 1980s, the committee had conducted the first ever hearings on domestic partner laws, transgender rights, and gender and racial issues within our community. It was my honor to be appointed to the Human Rights Commission in 1996 by then Mayor Brown, where I served until 2003. During my time, we held hearings on issues facing our young people, surfaced the economic issues facing most members of our community, wrote regulations protecting transgender people, and held hearings about issues facing intersex people. We broke ground on issues facing LGBTQ seniors. As I address you today, I urge you to continue to raise new issues, take risks, and be bold. Thanks for playing your part in expanding our rights and protecting our future.
Thank you, Martha Knutson, and of course a special thank you to Michael Pappas as well, who was on the commission and is now with the Interfaith Council. Between the two of you, who have been there since day one at every outreach meeting, stakeholder engagement, and getting us to this point today. So thank you both. And before we get started with the swearing in, I know we're all extremely ready for that, I want to welcome Jojo Tai, who is one of our fellow new members on the advisory committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jojo Tai, and my pronouns are they, them, and he, him. I'm a former youth commissioner for District 8, and I'm a current member of OTI's Trans Advisory Committee, and now I'm a new member of the HRC's LGBTQ+ Advisory Committee. Thank you, Mayor London Breed, and the San Francisco Human Rights Commission. I'd also like to thank Commissioner Martha Knutson for acknowledging the legacy and history of the LGBTQI+ Advisory Committee. As a young trans person born and raised in San Francisco, I'm excited for the relaunch of this historic body to address and take action on issues that heavily impact our communities. The inequities of housing, access to healthcare and violence, to just name a few. Our communities are experiencing multiple forms of trauma, including COVID-19 and racial battle fatigue. While systems and agencies are responding, scores of decisions are being made without the input of those most affected. Through the LGBTQI+ Advisory Committee, we have the opportunity to advance leadership and visibility of BIPOC, trans, and gender nonconforming leaders. Once again, San Francisco continues to lead our nation in LGBTQ+ equity. The new revamped body consists of primarily BIPOC and transgender and non-binary community leaders, making this one of San Francisco's most diverse committees. Ensuring there is a robust representation when critical decisions and policies are being developed that meet the needs of us all. This is an exciting new model for San Francisco that will bring us all together, and I can't wait to see what we accomplish for the rest of the nation to see. Again, I'd like to thank Mayor London Breed, the Human Rights Commission, to always serve the community, for the leadership and advocacy centering all LGBTQ people in San Francisco and beyond. Thank you.
Just before we get into the swearing in, I just want to take a moment once more. When we kicked off Pride a couple of weeks ago on the steps of City Hall, I acknowledge Dr. Grant Colfax as being this incredible leader and what he did to help us get to this point in the pandemic, and he wasn't even there. He was on vacation. But you know things are looking up when Dr. Colfax takes a vacation. A well-deserved vacation. So I want to take this opportunity to recognize him during Pride and just to say thank you, Dr. Colfax, for your leadership. You know, I yelled a lot and he'd never back down, and I wanted to open and he's like, no way, Mayor, here's the information. I'm like, stop putting that information in my face. I don't want to see it. Anyway, there were some tense conversations, but let me tell you, we are so fortunate to have Dr. Colfax as our leader of the Department of Public Health, and when we attribute what we did here in San Francisco, I want you to tell the rest of the world it was a gay man who led this effort. So, thank you, Dr. Colfax. And one last thing, where's my little bag? Somebody has a little bag that I have my stuff in? Okay, so this didn't happen with other mayors. I just want you guys to understand, when someone chooses to serve, whether it's a commission or, thank you, a commission or an advisory committee, I take the, like as a former commissioner myself, it was an honor. I showed up to meetings, I hardly missed the meeting, I always participated in the conversation. And, you know, when I first got a City Seal pin, it wasn't until like way later in my term. Well, I, as mayor, decided that as soon as I swear anyone into anything, they're gonna know that I swore them in. So this is the City and County of San Francisco. This is the City Seal pin. My signature is on the inside so you can remember. And it just talks about the history of this city. And as you take this oath and serve our city proudly, please wear your City Seal pin with pride so people can know of your commitment to San Francisco. And with that, please stand to all the new members. You'll get your pin after you officially take the oath. All right. No turning back now. Okay, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. And during such time as I serve as member of the LGBTQI+ Committee for the City and County of San Francisco. Congratulations.